All right, awesome. So welcome back, everyone. It's so great to see you guys here for week 2 of our Be Well San Diego series, sponsored by Kaiser Permanente. I'm Darby McWaters, Digital Marketing and Communications Coordinator at the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce, and I'm going to be your moderator throughout the Be Well series. Quick reminder that your cameras and mics will be off today, but we would love your participation through the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We'll be going through your questions during our Q&A session at the end. All right, so let's jump into week 2. So welcome to Balance Well, which is the second installment of our Be Well San Diego series. Just to refresh everyone, Be Well is our 4-week wellness program designed to help you boost your wellness this year through simple, actionable steps you can actually stick with. And don't forget, if you attend all 4 of these Wellness Wednesday webinars, you'll be entered to win one of 3 $100 gift cards to Dick's Sporting Goods. Today, I'm happy to introduce Carissa Fish, who holds her master's degree in mind-body medicine and serves as a lifestyle educator at Kaiser Permanente's Positive Choice Integrative Wellness Center. With over 13 years of experience in mind-body health and wellness, Carissa knows exactly how to help us tackle today's topic, from stress to refreshed. She'll be sharing strategies on how to balance stress, ease your mind, and refresh to bounce back from stressful moments. Carissa, thanks so much for joining us today. I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Darby. Very much appreciated. Hi, folks. I'm so glad to be here with you this afternoon. Go ahead and share my slides. Okay. As Darby mentioned, this is something I'm really passionate about. I got into this field because I need my own medicine here. Left to my own devices, I'm a very stress-prone human, and so I've learned lots of different tools that can be helpful, and I love to share them with people. So let me give you a little summary of where we're headed today. We are going to do a really brief sort of stress and resilience 101. I promise we won't stay there forever because I know you know what stress is, but it can be helpful to define some terms. I'll give you sort of a menu of mini refreshers that you can try during the middle of your workday or any stressful moment. We'll have a little bit of a longer guided relaxation, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how time is for us. And then I'll invite you to end with sort of putting together your own stress refresher toolbox, noticing what's helpful to you and jotting that down for yourself. So I'll say more about that as well. But I'll give us a moment to take a second to settle in. And this, in fact, is one of our practices, but I invite you, first of all, if you can, to minimize distractions. So if you're able to put yourself on Do Not Disturb, if you're able to flip your phone over, great. If life's not allowing for that right now, that's okay. But I invite you to see what open windows you might be able to close or what notifications you might be able to turn off. And if you'd like to join me, just take a couple of shoulder rolls. If that doesn't feel good to you, anything that would feel good and sort of just a nice little stress reliever. We'll do a little bit more stretching as well. They're on. And then taking a second to settle, you can gently close your eyes if you like, or just finding a soft gaze. And I invite you to take a few nice, slow, deep breaths. Take a moment as best you can to unhook your brain from whatever you were just doing, allowing yourself to land in this present moment. Maybe finding your feet under you, support of your furniture if you're sitting. Just allowing yourself to land. Perhaps bringing to mind what prompted you to sign up for today. If there's something you'd like to walk away with, maybe setting the intention to sort of scan for something that will be helpful and tangible for you in your actual day-to-day life. And then if you like, join me for one more nice, slow, deep breath all the way in. And release it. Lovely. If you close your eyes, you can blink them open and find your way back to the screen. You might take a little stretch if you want one. Okie dokie. So just to define our terms a little bit here, what in the world is stress? There are lots of ways we can define it, but a definition I often like to use is that it is a perception of danger, I'll come back to that, leading to a physical and emotional response. I'm sure you felt this, right? Your heart starts to beat faster, maybe your muscles tense up, and the emotional response that comes with it. In small doses, this is a very helpful thing. If someone cuts you off on the highway, your stress response is excellent at helping you to focus and react really quickly in the moment. Where it becomes unhelpful is when it's chronic. And the other thing is our brains are not very good yet at telling the difference between actual danger and perceived danger. Something actually, being chased by a bear versus giving a presentation you're nervous to give. Our bodies respond the same. And so it's really helpful to have strategies that can help bring us back to center. And another definition that I really love is this one that's in the center, and I'm actually going to give that its own slide. So in some cases, stress can result from the perception that the demands on us exceed our inner resources. There's too much on our plate. There's too much coming at us that we feel we can't handle. And I like this framework because it gives us 3 places we might be able to shift. We can't always shift all 3 of them. Sometimes it's not a perception. Sometimes it's just true. There is a really challenging thing happening in our world right now. Maybe, we or a loved one are going through a difficult health situation. That's not a perception, that's just fact. But sometimes we can change how we're looking at something. So one of my favorites is to replace I have to with I get to or I choose to. So, I have to do this, 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 this. If you can, shifting to a place of I get to, right? For me, even when I have a really busy work day, it's often crowded with things I like to do. So reminding myself, okay, I get to give a really cool talk, have a coaching session with someone, etc. Or just I choose to, right? I'm not excited about this, but I'm choosing to do it. So that's one thing you might shift. Sometimes what we need to shift are the demands that are on us, if we can. Sometimes that looks like saying no more often or asking for help. Easier said than done, trust me, I know. What we're mostly going to focus on today is boosting our inner resources. So, okay, maybe life really is coming at us fast. Maybe there's not a lot we can do about it. How can we resource ourselves to be able to handle that a little bit better? And I know the text on this slide is small. Don't worry about reading every single thing. But the idea is when we're not practicing stress resilience tools, what tends to happen is our stress just builds and builds and builds and builds. And so the examples that I have along the bottom of the slide are, maybe we're rushing out the door in our morning routine. Okay, I made it. Okay, now traffic is terrible. Okay, I made it to work. Oh my gosh, the first thing I see is a stressful email. And then something tiny like losing your pen just sends us off the deep end. Whereas if we're able to practice some resilience tools, those very same things might happen in our day, but we're able to come back down in between each of them so that it doesn't completely build and build and build. And this is especially helpful in a work context because I know for me, I don't want to bring that home to my loved ones at the end of the day. I don't want to already be at an 11 out of 10 when I'm coming home to be with my people. And so finding ways to help us sort of come back to baseline. I'm going to share with you quite a lot of techniques today, and my intention is to offer sort of a buffet. In my years of work with this, I have found that not everything works for everybody. And sometimes we've tried one form of stress management and it just wasn't our style. Maybe yoga's not your thing, or deep breathing isn't your thing. And then we just sort of discard it. My intention is to give you a lot of options, and I invite you to pay attention to the ones that you're interested in. Maybe jotting them down as we go. I'll give you a little recap at the end. The ones where you think, oh yeah, that's interesting. I might try that. Or right, I used to love doing that, but I haven't done it in a long time. So That's what we're going to shift to right now, is a series of sort of mini refreshers. And I always like to remind myself, that the days when we feel like we have no time to pause, right? The days, frankly, when my meditation app pops up and is like, take a deep breath. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. Are the days we need it most and the days when it has the biggest impact. When we are really overwhelmed is actually when a little bit goes an even longer way. And as one of my very first meditation teachers would say, pretty much anything can wait for 5 minutes. Every now and then there is a true emergency that can't wait, but almost anything can. And slowing down long enough to take a few minutes for yourself, research shows time and time again, actually makes you more productive, more efficient. It's actually a really good use of your time. And it's a gift to everybody else around you. When we take care of ourselves, we can show up better for our colleagues, our employees, our loved ones. All right, so that's my little spiel. And yeah, let's dive into the mini refreshers. There's a Q&A section for questions that come up as we go. I'm also going to invite you to use the chat. And in fact, if you want to just send me a hello so that I know the chat is working, that would be lovely. And I'll sort of invite a little bit of engagement as we go. So feel free to chat in if you choose to. I'm going to keep moving forward as well. So I am going to talk about mindfulness and deep breathing and relaxation because that's my niche. But I want to start with some things that we forget sometimes that can be really, really helpful for stress management. Beautiful. Thanks for those hellos, folks. And one of them is movement. When you think about the idea of a fight or flight response, your body is preparing you to fight or flee. And what tends to happen is we sort of just sit there stewing in those endorphins and those neurochemicals, and they have nowhere to go. And so sometimes that can look like a simple stretch in the office. I'm going to lead you in one of those in just a second. If you can get outside, all the better. For me, anytime I step out in the sunlight, I feel like 20% of my problems are fixed. And maybe it's just goofing around with your kids. If you work from home or if you have the ability, movement doesn't always have to look like, a full hour and a half at a gym. I am a big fan of the 3-minute dance party. If you are working in a place where that's doable, I know not all of us are. So finding a way to plug a little bit of movement into our days, and especially at the end of the day, if you've had a stressful day, it's a really good way to reset and let some of that release from the body. So I'm going to guide you in just maybe 2 minutes of seated stretches that you can do wherever you are. Of course, opt out of anything that won't actually feel good for your body. You know it better than I do. I know we did a couple shoulder rolls at the beginning. Let's take just a couple more. Go slightly slower than you're inclined to. I tend to rush through my shoulder rolls. It's nice to actually get that full range of motion. Maybe going the other way. Sometimes we're in our heads a lot. We forget to check in with the body. Go ahead and take one more shoulder roll to the back. And then some nice gentle neck circles. If that feels okay for you, you might go all the way around or just sort of half circles. Back to center. Let's take a little spinal twist. So if you can, if you've got enough wingspan, take a nice deep breath with your arms coming up. And then come down into a twist. So I'm going to place my right hand on my left knee. You might grab your armchair if you've got one. No prizes for how far you twist, so don't hurt yourself. We're just giving our back a little wake up. Take another breath here. And next one, on your next breath, sweep back up. And other side. You might choose to look over your alternate shoulder, you might not. And on your next inhale, come back to center. I'm going to show you one more for the back, one more for the neck. So we're going to take a seated cat and cow posture. In yoga, normally this is done on all fours, hence the names. I'm just going to turn sideways so you can see me a little bit better. I'm going to place my hands on my knees. As I inhale, I'm going to bring my chest forward, head and tailbone go back. Nice arch. The exhale, we're going to reverse that, tucking the chin, tucking the pelvis. Just take a few cycles of that on your own. Again, I know if you're in a public office space, this may not be comfortable to do, so choose your own adventure. But I like to demonstrate the options because this can be a really nice one if you've been sitting for a long time. Take 2 more rounds of that at your own breath's pace. You're ready, meet us back in sort of a neutral posture. And then last, let's do a little neck release. So I'm going to take my right ear to my right shoulder. And for some of us, that is plenty. You should be feeling this on the left side of your neck. If you're going the same way as me, if you're mirroring, doesn't matter. If you want a little bit more, you might add a hand on your head. Or my personal preference, I'm leaning to the right. I'm going to take my left hand, flex it, and drop it by my side. And that helps wake up these side muscles even a little bit more and deepen that stretch. Don't forget to breathe. And then supporting your head on the way back up helps keep those muscles relaxed. Take a little pause here. And then other side, you might need something different on this side. You might have more or less tension. So for me, I'm going left ear to left shoulder. You might add a hand on top, or I'm going to flex my right hand and drop it to my side. Supporting the head on the way back up, and then take just 5 or 10 seconds for any other movement that would feel good to you, that maybe you didn't know you needed until you started moving, and then your body had something to tell you. Taking a little moment to care for our physical selves. Alrighty, excellent. I'll be sharing some resources at the end, and I will share with you some quick little videos that you can do from your desk for movement. All right, as we proceed through the next little bit, I will invite you, when we find a strategy that feels good to you, if you want to, you can just put a little exclamation point into the chat, or say, this one, to indicate for yourself. Honestly, mostly this is to help you remember which ones are a good fit for you. So if movement is a good stress reliever for you, feel free to drop that into the chat. Another one that's easy to forget about is connection. Now, again, I know we've got folks from all different situations joining, so you may or may not have the luxury to go snuggle with a pet or chat with a coworker in the middle of your workday. But if you do, this is such an unsung hero of stress management. Getting out of our own heads, out of wherever we were just focused, and taking a moment to connect with another being can be a really, really useful one to have in your back pocket. I mentioned that sometimes we get stuck in our heads and we forget to care for our bodies. And I like to think of this as basically caring for our 5 senses. And so I know for a lot of people, me included, music and listening to nature sounds can completely shift our state of being. I've been on a sort of gentle lo-fi kick recently, which really helps my brain to both relax and to focus. Maybe you love the sound of waves or rain in a forest, and just remembering that that is something that can really help. I'll try not to go on a really long tangent here, but I just think it's really cool. There's research that shows that birdsong is really helpful in helping us to relax, because from an evolutionary standpoint, birds don't chirp if there are predators nearby, if they're scared. And so if the birds are chirping, it means it's safe. And we sort of, that's just like hardwired into the lizard part of our brain. And so that can be a really helpful strategy for us to communicate, right? Like I mentioned before, our bodies aren't great at telling whether we're really in danger or not. So communicating to our bodies, no, there is not actually a bear chasing me, I promise, just working on a deadline. So listening to relaxing sounds can help with that. I'll also share some breath work that can help with that. Maybe aromas. I've got a nice little diffuser with a little lavender essential oil that I'll put on occasionally that can be a real help. Soft fabrics if you can. Again, I know we've got folks in lots of situations, so that may or may not be doable, but finding yourself something comfortable to be in, or maybe you've got a nice soft little lap blanket. And then sometimes there's just too much sensory input. And so if you can, earplugs or headphones can sometimes just feel like a whoosh, can help the world be a little bit quieter. Beautiful. So I see folks sharing, yeah, connection's an important one. We're fans of these. Beautiful. I'm going to share one more with you before I sort of pivot into our more mindfulness focused area. This is sort of to help our brain. And so sometimes it helps to just get those thoughts out on paper. Bonus points if you can do it by hand. There's research supporting that. I have horrendous handwriting and I prefer to type mine. So choose what works for you. But sort of just getting everything out of your mind and onto a page, whether that's a digital or a physical page, can be a super helpful one. And then taking a little bit of time to prioritize. Again, easier said than done, trust me, I know. But sometimes when we're really stressed, it's because we have 16 things to do today and they all feel equally important. So taking a few moments to sit down, slow down, go, okay, what actually has to happen? What would be good if it could happen? And what's sort of optional? So taking a moment to prioritize. And then what helps me is to only be able to see one task at a time. So I've got a stack of Post-it notes at my desk, and I try and just write down the one thing I'm working on and put it on my computer monitor so that when I inevitably get distracted, I know what to come back to. That's a useful one for, we've been talking about body, but taking care of our mind. That can be a really helpful one as well. Okay, so I think I mentioned in my intro that I also do individual mindfulness coaching through Kaiser. And so this is something that I'm really passionate about because it helps me so much. And so I just want to share this definition, and then I'm going to share a variety of practices with you all. So the classic definition comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn, and he says that mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and without judgment. Our attention is yanked every which way in modern life. Sometimes it feels like without our, having a choice in it. And so with mindfulness, we are putting our attention somewhere on purpose in the present. We are some of the only animals who can think back to the past and ahead to the future, which is incredibly helpful in a lot of places. And we can take it too far sometimes. So bring ourselves into the present. And then he says, without judgment, I find a helpful phrasing to be without evaluating. We're not evaluating things as being good or bad or why my knee is twinging in that way. We're just observing what's here. So classic one with this is breath. And so I'm going to lead you in just a few cycles of some deep breathing. I always like to say when I first started meditating, my asthma was not well controlled. And so focusing on my breath was really stressful for me. So if deep breathing isn't your thing, I promise we've got some other ones coming. But if you want, take a few deep breaths with me. You can close your eyes if you want to. See if you can send that breath low into the belly. And take some nice long exhales. Another really helpful way to communicate to the body we're safe, to talk to that rest and digest side of our nervous system, is to breathe into the belly, breathing into the diaphragm. And then nice long exhales. And if you want to add a little visualizing to it, The reason that I have called this a breath sweep is you can imagine that the breath is coming in almost through the soles of your feet and sweeping up to the top of your body, and then sweeping back out from your head to your toes. Sometimes I imagine this as a literal broom. And if I've got something I want to let go of, I imagine the breath sort of collecting all of that stress on the in-breath and sweeping it away on the exhale. Taking a few cycles of that in whatever way feels good to you. For example, if you had a stressful commute and you want to sort of reset as you get to the office, this is a good one to sort of shake off the stress of your drive or however you commute. Taking a nice big sweep and letting it go. Let's do one more. Lovely. You can let your breath return to normal. You can leave your eyes closed if you want for this next one. I'm going to do a mini body scan. Time permitting, we'll do a longer body scan later. It's just a quick way to get out of your head and into your body, into the present moment, as we talked about. So do me a favor, find your feet. Notice what surface they're resting on, what sensations you can pick up. Are your shoes too tight? How do your socks feel? Maybe you're barefoot if you're home. Just noticing your feet, maybe feeling that sense of being grounded, standing on your own 2 feet. See if you can soften your belly. Maybe it's already soft from those nice deep breaths, but sometimes we hold it tight without meaning to. So see if there's space to relax the muscles in your belly. See if you can drop your shoulders. The yoga teacher who says that shoulders are not earmuffs. You want to drop them down. And see if you can soften your jaw. I am a habitual jaw clencher, so maybe moving that side to side a little bit. Just see if you can soften it. And that's the whole thing for the mini one. Checking in with your feet, your belly, shoulders, and jaw. So you can blink your eyes open if you've closed them. So we just did a breath sweep. We did a mini body scan. Now we're going to check in with our senses. And this is sort of an abbreviated version of a longer 5 senses practice. I'm calling it shape and color awareness. So sometimes what happens is, again, we are in our heads, or, sometimes I feel like I'm just inside of my laptop in the middle of a stressful work day. And this can help get us out of it just for a moment. So I invite you to play along. Pick a shape you like. I'm picking circles. Maybe you want to look for triangles or squares. Just look around your actual physical space and see if you can find 3 of them. And then look for 3 things that are blue or your favorite color. Sort of name them in your mind as you find them. Great. And now scan for 3 details you haven't noticed recently. Maybe the wood grain on your desk or a detail in a piece of art that hangs above your desk. Just noticing 3 little details you haven't noticed recently. And then come back. And what this does, I don't know about you, but my brain gets really quiet when I do that because I've given it a job. I've given it a specific thing to scan for, to look for. It helps me come into my physical environment. I mentioned this is an abbreviated one. Here's the longer version. And I won't have us do every single step of it for the sake of time, but I just want to share it. So this is usually called a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 practice, or a 5 senses practice. And what you would do is you would look around you, and I'll do 1 for each of these. But normally you would look around you and name 5 things you could see. So I see my artwork that hangs above my desk, and then you would do 4 more. 4 things you can touch or feel. So I feel my feet on the ground beneath me. And you might also notice clothing, your chair, etc. 3 sounds that you can hear. So I can hear my air conditioner going. I hope it's not loud on your end. Zoom's usually pretty good with that. And then maybe scanning for a couple other sounds. 2 smells. Not a lot going on with smells for me at this moment. And then a taste. And sometimes it might be the absence of that. Don't really have a strong taste in my mouth right now either. But it's a way, again, to sort of bring us back to center. So I'll give a little opportunity here, actually, for you to notice for yourself, and you can toss in the chat, of the handful that we just did, is there 1 or 2 that stand out to you? So we did the breath sweep, mini body scan, that shape and color form of awareness of looking for 3 things, or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a second if you choose to tell us in the chat what you might want to try more often. Body scan is a favorite for me too. Keep those coming if you like. So I mentioned earlier that breathing low into the belly is very good for talking to, the term is our parasympathetic nervous system. It's the opposite of fight or flight. So are long exhales. Because if you think about it, if you're, running from a bear, I keep using that analogy, and you're safe, what do? You make it back to wherever you were trying to go. You go, right? Long exhales don't normally happen when we're in danger. And so it's a really helpful way to tell our body that we're safe. And so something I really like is something called rectangle breathing or 4-6 breathing that helps us to take that longer exhale. And so grab my laser pointer here. Hopefully this will cooperate with us. Great. Okay. So this works beautifully if you can look out a window or at something that is visually calming, but it works with any rectangle. And so I'm guessing most of you are looking at a computer screen or a phone screen right now. They're usually rectangles, so you can play along with that as well. But bringing your eyes to the bottom left corner of, or rather the corner of a short edge of your rectangle, if yours happens to be vertical, and then breathing in for 4 as you trace your eyes up that side. And then exhale for 6 along that long side. In for 4. Out for 6. I'm going to let you go for 2 cycles without my laser pointer. Find your own pace and give this a try. Finishing up whatever cycle you're on. This one can be great if you're in a stressful meeting, because you can do this very unobtrusively. Just looks like you're paying attention to whatever screen you're looking at. And so this can be a really nice one. There's also a version, this is rectangle breathing. There's also box breathing where you go in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. So there's lots of interesting things you can do with paced breathing. Here's another variation on some deep breathing. I learned this in a situation that was mindfulness for kids. I have found that many adults like it too. Basically, it lets you be mindful and fidget at the same time. So if you want to play along, take the hand you write with, and then take your opposite hand in front of you. You're going to take your other hand, take the pointer at the base of your thumb. All you're doing is as you inhale, trace your finger toward the nail. As you exhale, come back towards your palm. Inhale and exhale. If it tickles, you might press a little more. There are a lot of sensory receptors in our hands. So this gives our brain lots of opportunities for things to pay attention to. You might pay attention to the feeling in your hands or your breath. When you get to the end, you can go back the other way, and this rocking motion is soothing for a lot of folks. Another one you can do fairly discreetly. If you're on camera, just drop your hands off camera. Give yourself a little soothing moment with that one. All right, so tracing our hand in time with our breath. One more mindfulness one is bringing that mindful awareness, mindful attention to something you were going to do anyway. And one of my favorites with this is a mindful tea or coffee break. Typically, often, at least for me, when I'm taking a break, my mind is still working. So maybe I'm walking to the break room or somewhere to go make my coffee, but I'm still writing emails in my head or whatever the case might be. See if instead you could actually feel your feet as you walk down the hall. Could you notice sort of how you move through space as you grab the tea bag or the coffee pot? Could you be aware of the smell, the temperature, the sensations? And then maybe just your first couple of sips, really be present as someone who loves coffee, really being present with the flavor, the aroma, the pleasant moment. Usually we aren't able to have, an entire mug of coffee where all we're doing is noticing the coffee, but we can probably manage a couple sips. Another variation of this is a mindful walk. Mindful hand washing. Anytime you wash your hands, try and bring your attention to that actual tactile sensation instead of whatever's going on in your brain. So bringing that into something you were going to do anyway. So I'll invite you to, same thing here. I'll do a quick little rewind. So of the rectangle breathing, hand tracing, or mindful coffee or tea break, is there one that you want to remember for yourself that you find to be helpful? And then when you're ready, I'm going to take a little guided relaxation practice. I'm going to leave my eyes open because if I don't, sometimes I take this too long. I get too in my own zen. But I invite you to close down your eyes or to just find a neutral place to gaze in your environment. It's comfortable finding your breath again. Maybe just watching your breath as it naturally happens, or you might on purpose take some slower, deeper breaths. Inviting and encouraging your mind and body to rest just for now. And take a slightly longer version of that body scan. So tracing your awareness down into your feet once more. It can help to plant your feet. So really feeling that connection with the ground beneath you. There's a reason we have expressions like standing on your own 2 feet or having your feet under you. It's a nice, helps us feel secure. Maybe sensing that connection to gravity too, holding you. Bringing some attention into your legs, just noticing what's here. You might have some pain or discomfort or not. Either one's fine. On your next exhale, see if you could relax the muscles in your legs. Can you let your chair do the work and allow gravity to let those legs relax if they can? I happen to be sitting on a yoga ball, so I need my legs to do a little bit to keep me balanced. But anything you're able to relax with your next couple exhales, see if you can imagine the legs getting heavier, sinking down. Drawing some awareness then to your hips, your sit bones. If you're sitting down, noticing that connection between you and your seat. Again, see if you can relax into that even just a smidge more. If you have back support, maybe leaning into it a little bit. Noticing if your back could relax, even just a fraction. Imagining the muscles and the knots in your low back, mid back, upper back, unclenching. If you enjoy a back massage, maybe imagining that sensation that can actually help your literal muscles relax. Carrying that up into the neck and the shoulders. So once more, if your shoulders have snuck up, see if you can drop them down. Imagining that area softening and releasing. Wrapping around to the front of the torso. So once again, checking in with the belly, noticing if it could be a little less tense. Imagining some softness and some opening around your heart. Maybe pulling the shoulders back just a little bit to open up the chest, especially if you tend to hunch over a keyboard. Melting the relaxation down your arms and into your hands. Allowing your arms to sort of sink into whatever they're resting on. If it's comfortable, let your hands be still just for now. Our hands are so busy so much of the time. Remembering that none of this has to be perfect. Just inviting a little more softness. So tracing your awareness back up through the arms and shoulders into the neck and then up into the head and the face. You might scrunch and unscrunch your face if you're somewhere you feel okay doing that. See if you can soften your forehead, maybe your jaw again. Letting the body know that it's okay to relax as much as it can. And sweeping back through the body from the head to the toes, so feeling just a little more relaxed in your head and face, neck and shoulders, arms and hands, back, chest and belly, hips and legs and feet. Noticing any area that maybe does feel a little bit more relaxed. Taking just a few breaths here, allowing yourself this moment to rest. You may even like to imagine yourself inside of a bubble. All of the stressors, all of the to-dos are on the outside of the bubble, just for now on the inside. Sort of like the eye of the storm, it's quiet and calm. Taking a few more moments to rest here. Perhaps noticing that if you are a little more relaxed, that it didn't take very long. This has been maybe 6 minutes so far. You can do a fair bit of relaxing in a short time. Let's start to bring a little more energy back, knowing that you can always access that more relaxed state. Let's take a nice fresh inhale of oxygen. Bringing in some alertness without needing to feel rushed. Starting to wiggle those fingers and toes if you can. Maybe taking a nice big stretch like your dog waking up from a nap. If your eyes have been closed, blink them open. Maybe look away from the screen for a second. Bring yourself back into your physical environment. And then coming back to the screen when you're ready. If that style of practice works for you, there's like a 45 or 50-minute body scan that I fall asleep to most nights. So there is a much longer version of that if you want to. I want to make sure that we have time for some resources and some Q&A. And so I invite you to sort of scan back over what we have done together. And just remind yourself, I've sort of been asking you as we go, so you don't have to toss it into the chat here. Just think about what worked for you or you think might work for you. What are you interested to try? And I invite you to jot that down somewhere. When we are in stress mode, we basically get tunnel vision, which is our body trying to keep us safe. But we forget all of our strategies most of the time. And so I invite you to jot down, oh, right, taking a little dance break is a really good one for me. Stepping outside, maybe trying that hand tracing. So take a moment to jot that down for yourself. I'm going to grab a couple links that I want to share with you. I'll share a couple resources and then we'll have time for some questions. So as our moderator mentioned, I work with Kaiser Permanente in a department called Positive Choice. It's our integrative wellness center. We actually have our own website because our services are available to folks who are KP members and non-members. And I'm going to drop a bunch of links in the chat right now that Zoom might not hyperlink for us, but hopefully, oh, there you go. Great. Okay. So one thing we have on there, that first link is 5-minute movement videos, which are all have a seated option. So that can be a really nice guide for moving in the middle of your workday. We also have stress management services. We offer massage, assisted stretching with a Theragun. I mentioned I do that one-on-one mindfulness and self-care coaching with folks. We have biofeedback, which is a really cool way of helping train our bodies to relax and to recognize when we're in a relaxed state. I've also got a link on there that links you, if you are a KP member, to various benefits and discounts you have access to. And two of the things are you get premium access to the Headspace and Calm apps for free if you're a Kaiser member. But even if you're a non-member, I've linked the YouTube Shorts videos of each of those two for just mini little breaks. I'm a big fan of the Headspace ones. There's a really cute one where there's a cat taking deep breaths, a little cartoon cat, and you follow its belly in and out. So just finding little pockets in the middle of your day, again, helps sort of bring you back down to baseline. All right. Yes, 10 minutes exactly. Great. For our questions, for our Q&A. So Darby, I'll hand it to you to sort of pass those along to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was great. I know I feel more relaxed.
Hooray.
Okay, so the first question is going to be, what are some of the most overlooked signs that someone is experiencing stress?
Oh, that's a great question. For me, one of them is snippiness. I usually don't notice it until I'm at a 10. And so being able to catch it a little sooner, when basically for me with stress, I feel like my threshold is lower, right? Things that don't bother me when I'm well resourced can really get to me. And the other one is the physical tension. So, sort of checking in with your shoulders and your stomach, noticing if you're sort of holding those tense without being aware of it. This is really silly, but I like it. I saw someone somewhere on social media talking about the Tupperware test. And she said, imagine you open your cabinet and all of your Tupperware and all of the lids fall out. If you sort of chuckle and you're like, well, it's annoying, but I can clean it up, you're probably not super stressed. If that sends you off into a tizzy, you probably need to take a minute and tend to yourself. So those are a couple of things that popped to mind.
Okay, the next one's going to be, how does stress manifest differently in the body versus the mind?
Oh boy. Okay, I could talk about this for 2 hours. So, in lots and lots of ways. The classic stress response has several factors to it. So one thing is our breathing gets shorter and shallower. Another is that our pupils tend to dilate. Another is that our body sends most of its resources to our arms and legs, because remember, fight or flee, which leads to digestive problems. So one of the reasons stress and digestion are so linked is when we are eating in a constant stress state, our body isn't prioritizing digestion, because again, if you're running from a bear, it matters that you get away. It doesn't matter that you digest your lunch you know, super efficiently. So those are really common ones. And that sort of buildup of muscle tension. Tension headaches have that name for a reason. So I mentioned I'm a jaw clencher, and so sometimes that'll show up in my body. Um, it's sort of a crossover between body and mind, but dreams. Having stressful dreams is a really clear indicator. And I think it's helpful to sort of know what your stress signals, warning signs are. Mine are very, very physical. I have a friend who they're not so physical, but she could tell by the way her thought patterns are working, by the way her emotions are feeling, that she needs to, pause and give herself a little grace. But for me, if I sort of, feel my upper trapezius and it feels like a block of bricks, that's a little signal to me that there's some stress manifesting in my body. And then there's those long-term effects of the constant, cortisol and epinephrine and all of those other factors that can build up over time.
The next one's going to be, this is kind of along the same lines. What are some of the most common symptoms of chronic stress?
Yeah, so some of the ones that I shared, let me see what else I might add to that. One is the term's a little intense, but hypervigilance. So when our body thinks we're in danger, it's having us scan all the time for something that might be going wrong. And sometimes our I call it our antenna is extra sensitive, right? So we sort of notice everything in the environment. And again, in small doses, that's great. It's very helpful for us to be scanning for danger or noticing, that somebody's tone of voice shifted. But when it feels like that is happening all the time, or another one that's sort of related is when we feel like we have a disproportionate reaction to things. And we sort of get into that, one term for it is catastrophizing, right? This one thing went wrong and therefore everything's going to go wrong. Or, you know, so when we sort of I can feel it in my body. I'm like, this is out of proportion to what's actually happening, but I'm having this really big reaction. So those are some ways that it can show up. And again, the digestion thing is a huge one too.
The last question is going to be, have you ever used tapping for stress relief, and do you find it to be a helpful technique?
I have. It's sort of a for me personally, it's sort of like a B string strategy. It's not one I reach for all the time, but I do like it. I don't feel I'm not an expert in it, so I can't remember all of the points, but it sort of comes from the idea of acupressure, of bringing tapping to different meridians of the body. And it's also a mindfulness exercise, it just gives you something to focus on. So I know it starts on the top of the head, and then I think it's outer eyebrow, cheekbone. There's a few different places where you tap, and there are instructions on, often there's sort of an affirmation that goes along with that. That can be a really helpful one, especially again for folks who don't just want to sort of sit still in silence, right? That's not everybody's cup of tea. And so bringing a little bit of movement, a little bit of body awareness, and that affirmation angle to it can be really helpful for a lot of folks.
Awesome. Well, I think that is all of our questions. Thank you so much for your
Oh,
presentation. It was so wonderful.
my
Um,
absolute pleasure.
and thank you to everyone else as well for your participation. That's going to wrap up our second week of Be Well San Diego. Big thanks to Kaiser Permanente as well for sponsoring this series and making it possible. And don't forget to join us next Wednesday at noon for week 3, which is going to be Save Well, where we're going to be diving into all things finance. Thank you everyone again for participating, and to you, Carissa, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everyone. You can find some time for some deep breaths today.